Well, g'day everyone. We've got a really awesome Oldham Rare tasting, the 8th iteration of our Oldham Rare tasting coming up, and there's some cracking bottles in that lineup, including these two. So these are the bottles that in themselves are a little bit older, being most likely 80s, early to mid 80s bottlings of the Glenturret, the 15-year-old, and this awesome, the Glendullan. So we're going to open these two now and have a little bit of a taste of them and do a little bit of a preview of the tasting. And for each of the bottles, I'll be joined by a special guest to tell me their thoughts on the bottle. And we're going to start with the Glendullan 12-year-old. And for this one, I'm going to be joined with Owen. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good.
So
excited for these.
It's awesome. The Glendullan Speyside. Really, really interesting history. It goes back to 1898, I believe, was when they were sort of founded. And gone through lots of iterations. They were closed for a little bit during the Second World War and reopened, and lots of different things have happened at the distillery. Owned by Diageo. And a lot of their production now, their single malt production, goes into Singleton, particularly like for the US market, and you don't see a lot of Glendullans on the market, so having this 80s bottle in the tasting is super exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those names that I sort of did a double take and went, is that the correct name attached to the right Glen? And it was a cool little bit of history and typical sort of 80s bottle design, and yeah, it's going to be a cool one to taste.
Yeah, well, let's, without further ado, crack it open. So now on these early sort of like the 80s bottles, the 70s bottles, whenever we get the awesome chance to try these ones, often... Oh, that's quite tight on there.
Screw caps and
there we go.
Oh, awesome.
Easy done. You're going to get a little bit of old bottle effect, which is completely natural. That's going to just be from the age of the bottle, it getting that slight dustiness, that sort of old sort of cupboardy smell. But eventually you're sort of able to look through this one. Now, Glendullan's pretty famous for these bottles being quite fruity. So
that's incredibly fruity. My God.
Oh, wow. There's Jesus, that's insane.
God, oh my God.
There's barely any old bottle in there at all.
Ripe pears, peaches, bananas.
Yeah, lots of melons, tropical fruits. You know, it's a little bit of oak there as well, perhaps some spice on the nose. But
go back to our lovely tasting note we do in all our tastings, the good old guava.
Yes, the guava. We love the guava. Oh, yeah.
Oh, ooh. Even a little bit of gentle smoke almost on it. It's got a crazy depth of depth.
Heaps of raisins on the palate. So this Glendullan now, of course, like Diageo try and push out a lot of the Singletons to America and around the world. That's kind of a big purpose of Glendullan for them. One of the highest rated, almost acclaimed Glendullans is a bottle, a Singleton bottle from pretty much right around this era, which was taken a lot further in age and bottled like in the early 2000s. But in this whiskey, it's really good pedigree.
Blow me away.
This is sensational. So, I mean, what a cracking opportunity to try this sensational, quite fruit-forward whiskey in the next tasting. So, Owen, I know you'll be looking forward to it, and everyone else should be, because that one's cracking. Thanks for joining me for this one,
No
Owen.
problem.
And for part 2, I'm going to be joined by Jose. Thanks for coming in and joining us to try this one, Jose. Now, the Glenturret 15, probably a mid-80s bottling. Glenturret is normally like a really famous component for blending in the famous grouse. So that's where a lot of it goes. And although it's like a distillery with a lot of history going back to like 1783, you probably don't see as much of it in terms of official bottlings.
Correct. We don't get to see a lot of official bottlings here. And back on the day, this was, let's say, middle-of-the-road whiskey for everyone. So this is not a single cask. This is an official bottling. So it's this bottling is a good example of just traditional Scotch whiskey back from the 80s.
Yeah, nice.
Right. So let's give it a little bit of a taste. There is several Glenturrets that sometimes come a little bit peated. I'm not sure about this one. It's the first time I tasted this bottling.
That'll be really interesting. Yeah, okay, interesting. There is a little bit of that old bottle we speak about there, which we expect, but I can see a lot of oak behind that.
Yeah, I find like creme brulee a must.
Yeah.
Wow, quite a nice.
Yeah, wow.
I think this one's holding up a little bit better. Too much OBE on the back on the palate. This will probably whiff off in a week or so.
Yeah.
Heaps of must, but apples, like ripe red apples.
Yeah, there's a little bit of spice there, like wanting to push through as well for me.
Star anise kind of.
And it will be delicious, but I think this one does need a little bit of time to blow off. So it's going to be awesome to taste these two, along with the other 3 legendary whiskies that we've got in the Oldham Rare tasting. So please join us. There's some tickets still left, and it's going to be a cracking night of tasting some super good whiskies. And hope to see you there. Cheers.
Cheers.